Hello, this is Dr. Kamani, licensed clinical psychologist. Welcome to Manifesting Healing Monday. Welcome to my channel, Lifting as We Climb Consulting Wellness Services, where we focus on supporting individual and collective healing in terms of what are the ways that we manifest healing. So welcome. Thank you for your patience. I was a little late. Sorry for that. Trying to work on my connection. So we are continuing our conversation, Black women, in terms of healing from toxic work experiences, because unfortunately we know that Black women have higher rates of experiencing toxic workplace experiences, right? So I have my guest today, my Spelman sister, Stefany. Welcome, Stefany. How are you today?
I'm good, sis. How are you? It's so good to see your beautiful face.
Likewise, likewise. So Stefany and I were on a panel together, and when I found out she was a Spelman alum, I absolutely had to connect to her anyway, right? And so I reached out to her in terms of the research that I'm doing in terms of toxic work experiences. So I'm happy that my sister is here with me. I'm sad that so many of us have had this experience, but I feel that it is healing. The more of us have these conversations to raise awareness, and that we also talk about healing is possible. That is so important that we remember that healing is possible, because these toxic work environments can really be traumatic and very devastating. So, Stefany, I'm going to turn it over to you for you to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, sis, for giving me this space. I mean, we as Black women, especially in toxic work environments and just the things that we go through day to day, is so important for us to have these healing spaces. So I just thank you for creating it. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to see you. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Stefany Tomlinson. I'm an educator, a consultant, and I'm also in a doctoral program right now as I'm thinking about healing spaces for Black women and empowerment, especially in leadership and in the workspace. So humbled, so blessed with all the experiences that has brought me to this moment, and I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Awesome, awesome. So, Stefany, I know we talked earlier, and in my previous interviews also, what I've noticed is that when I say to people, tell me about a toxic work experience you've had, we're all Black women, so we've had multiple toxic work experiences, right? Which is very unfortunate. And coming from Spelman, we are taught that, we know our worth and we know our value, we know where we come from, right? Which helps us as we go into these toxic work environments, because it's like, wait, I know what I'm working with. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
So I'm wondering, just choosing one of the toxic work experiences, if you could share with the audience, what was that experience like and what was the impact that it had on you?
Absolutely. The one work experience that I can think about, I would say, has set the foundation of the woman I am today. So, like, while these toxic work experiences happen to us, I just acknowledge that Black women grow and expand after having them. And so I always like to talk about my experiences in the context of empowerment and thinking about
Yes.
how we're growing and expanding after them. So I came to education as a career changer. I never thought that I would be in education at all. I grew up in North Carolina, and in those schools, I saw the way that, educators were being treated, especially Black educators. And I didn't feel empowered to go into the classroom, but God always has a path forward. And so my calling led me into education, and I moved from North Carolina to Massachusetts, where I spent the trajectory of my education experience. And so
Mhm.
my early
That's
years,
a big change.
yeah,
North Carolina to Massachusetts. Yes.
it's a huge change, just the cultural
Yeah.
shifts and being
Hmm.
so far away. I think all of those things played into my work experience and
Hmm.
added to the toxicity. And so in the
Right.
first 3 years in education, I was a ninth grade teacher, and I got some work in doing instructional coaching and like growing other educators and tapping into the leadership space, which is often what happens with strong educators in the building. They tend to
Mm-hmm.
this internal pipeline into leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
when I moved into my assistant principalship, I would say that this is sort of the pinnacle of one of the most toxic work spaces that I had entered for several reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
First is I think that I was kind of pushed into that role with limited support. For
Mm-hmm.
any Black women who are on this call, who are in leadership, we know that that experience is very unique because intersectionality, both us being Black and also being woman, plays a role
Mm-hmm.
into how we show up.
Absolutely.
So when you
Absolutely.
move into a leadership space and you start to get to this tier where you're seeing less and less of the people that look like you, and you aren't
Mm-hmm.
fully prepared to enter into those spaces or lead
Mm-hmm.
in that way, it can pretty much set you off at the very beginning of not having a very strong foundation. So I moved into this role feeling unprepared as an assistant principal,
Wow.
this period. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then I recognized that as I continued to work in this role, that I
Mm-hmm.
experienced multiple levels of microaggressions
Mm-hmm.
from my white peers who were also in leadership. I was
Mm-hmm.
also a very strong instructional coach. I mean, I knew how to grow teachers, and I really was
Mm-hmm.
hoping to expand my leadership skills in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I was kind of pigeonholed into just doing discipline and Black
Wow.
and brown bodies. I was in a charter school, and for any
Mm-hmm.
this call who has been in a charter school at all, you know
Mm-hmm.
that there's just a lot of policies and policing, in my opinion, around
Mm-hmm.
Black and brown bodies. And so I
Right.
found myself at the beginning of being the helm of all of that. And I think that happens to a lot of Black women in leadership who are working in
Mm-hmm.
schools. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're the behavior person, and like we want
Ah,
you to be the one to kind of keep the Black and brown kids in line. And it just,
wow.
if you think about the historical context of that, right? And you think about
Yes.
like the implications of slavery, and you think about
Yes.
ways that hierarchy was set up in that space where our
Yes.
own people were positioned and put in places of positions to
Yes.
discipline and reinforce white supremacy. It's a
Absolutely.
very traumatic experience. And so
Yes.
having to do that alongside being constantly questioned for my decision making and
Mm. So
experience
you're putting a leadership position, but then you're questioned about your leadership skills.
exactly,
And
exactly,
then they didn't even prepare you to be in the position anyway.
exactly. There was no
Uh,
competition, and there was so many macroaggressions. I call them microaggressions, but they were very macro. And
hmm.
from my personal experience, I felt like a lot of these behaviors came from well-meaning white women who identified as allies,
Hmm.
brown communities that were in leadership
Yeah.
positions. And
Yeah.
uh,
Stephanie, can I ask you a little bit? Can you talk a little bit more in detail in terms of what did those macroaggressions look like? Because I think many of us have experienced, well-intentioned allies, right? But they cause a lot of harm and not totally oblivious to it. So I think it's important to hear like what are the specific things that you saw them do, and in their minds they're thinking that they're helping out, but they're really causing harm. So can you share a little bit like what did those macroaggressions look like?
oh my goodness, um, I don't know where I heard this quote from, but when you think about these micro and macroaggressions, they're kind of like those tiny little cuts, and
Yes, a
they,
thousand little paper cuts, a
yes,
death by thousand little paper cuts. Yes,
yes, they feel like those thousand little paper cuts, and they
yes,
compound so much, and they make you feel
hmm,
like you're crazy, and that
yes,
sometimes you can't even like pinpoint
hmm,
all of the time. But one
hmm.
example that I can think about is, those comments like, "Oh my gosh, Stefany, you are so smart," or like you
Like
are
that's a shock.
right. Yes, you're so smart. You
Uh-huh.
you are so well spoken. You're so
Oh,
articulate.
not the articulate. Right.
Yes, you're so articulate. Those are some, direct things. Or there were, some comments about the decisions I made with leadership in terms of,
Mm,
calling out specific educators who were kind of sending students out of their classrooms for very small reasons, that because of the cultural disconnects. You know,
wow.
you had, students getting sent out for saying something like, "What's up, homie?" Or, things that, Black and brown people know
Right. Right.
there. And so there's a gap of cultural competency and teaching
So
skill,
they're missing instruction time because
and
of
they're
that.
missing instruction time. And
Wow.
so when I would kind of push back or try to, like
Hmm.
get feedback, I would always be like, are you sure that's what's really happening? Are you sure that, this isn't, something you're making up? Or is this something that um is the rate pretty much are you sure that this is sort of a racial thing? Trying to make it seem if
Wow.
the things that you're saying are kind of coming out of thin air. And,
Right.
a lot of Black women, when they're in leadership positions, you're also trying to deconstruct and navigate the stereotypes that come along with that. So,
Absolutely. So you're being very mindful that you're being watched in terms of they're always questioning your competence, and those underhanded comments, they are a compliment, but not really, right? Because the question is, well, are you surprised that I'm smart? Are you surprised that I can speak well? Right. So
right,
those underhanded, but also you talked about just that sense of that gaslighting. So making you question, is this really the reality? Is it something with me? So they're already questioning your competence. Then you have the gaslighting. And then on top of that, you have the questioning of you as a Black woman with your own lived experience. You add value, right? But they're taking that as, well, you don't really know. You
right,
don't really know. Right.
right.
I
Exactly.
know better than you. Right.
Yes, you sum that up. And then the moment that you kind of get passionate, it's like, oh, you're angry. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The
Right.
hands go
You're
up.
making us uncomfortable.
Right.
Right.
And
That
so
wasn't my intention, right? That
exactly
wasn't my intention. Yes.
all of that.
Yes.
Um,
And it shuts us down.
it does. It breaks you down slowly
Hmm.
but surely. And you know, my mom always told me, girl, don't you ever make a career move until you have something else set up. I said in the middle of the year, without having another like job or next step, it was that traumatic for me.
Wow.
I said in the middle of the year, I'm not coming back.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So, Stephanie, I'm wondering if you could share also and let me just say this too, because we talked about just the historical implications of Black women in the workplace, right? And
Right.
especially when you're put in a position where you are put in a position to carry out white supremacist actions, right?
Yes.
So policing behaviors in the school, but also that sense of being mindful of when you want to say something, sometimes feeling that sense of, I have to watch how I say this because of the tone policing. Because if I say it a certain way, then they're going to focus more on how I said it and not what I said or why I said it, right? And
Hmm.
then also the issue that we have to be mindful of as Black people, that people see us as a threat. So if we present or if we say something passionately, that's often construed as we're being hostile, we're being aggressive, we're not a team player, all these very negative things. And so, we have to just think, okay, how am I going to say this in a way they can hear me? Right. But recognizing that they also have their own filters and how they're going to hear us anyway, and the negative consequences of making them feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Right. So all that pushback, that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of weight. And you're trying to help these kids.
I know. And that's it at the end of the day. It's like we enter into these spaces as educators for the kids. And
Right.
oftentimes, you go into these work environments that are operating under white supremacy, and you're
Yeah.
fighting egos, you're fighting
Yes.
status, you're fighting jealousy,
Yes. Yes.
right?
And their own unconscious biases, right? Which they have no connection to. And they're under this guise of, well, I'm woke or I'm an ally, right? And I saw a quote actually from one of our Spelman sisters, Dr. Monica Cox. And she said, you cannot call yourself my ally if I don't consider you my ally. Right.
That's
So
right.
many times people just kind of get on this sense of like, oh no, I'm an ally. No, no. If other people who look like us don't consider you an ally, you're not an ally, right? In
Yeah.
what ways are you centering your voice, Stefany? Because you are an expert. So in what ways were they centering your voice? They were not. They were trying to shut you down. So Stefany, can you share with the audience because that just sounds so stressful. What was that like for you in the moment? What impact did it have on you? Because you were like, I'm out by mid-semester. So tell us a little bit in terms of what was the impact what did all this have on you?
I mean, oh my gosh, Kamani, you know, I don't think that I had felt that much weight, especially in a professional space, in my entire working adult experience. And
Wow.
I felt discouraged.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I started to internalize all those things that were happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was translating into how I was defining my own worth.
Ooh.
So it's like, what's
Wow.
wrong with me? You know, where have I gone wrong? And so
Mm.
you're taking all of these different situations externally that are completely out of your control and have nothing to do with you. It's those conditions.
Yeah,
But sometimes you can't help but internalize those things, and it breaks
absolutely.
you down. It breaks down
Yeah,
your self-esteem. It breaks
yeah,
down, your momentum. It breaks down your
yeah,
sustainability. And, it starts to take a toll on your mental and emotional health. And when
yeah.
I was sort of going through those motions in that experience, I really questioned whether this was a space that I belonged in. And
Wow.
I shrunk.
Ooh,
I shrunk.
girl. Wow.
Yeah,
I just need to a pause for that, right? So in the sense that you were under like a psychological attack, right? It was psychological warfare.
right,
And when that happens, it causes you to question your own worth and your own value, right? And
right.
then you start questioning, why am I even doing this? Is this even the field for me? Even though you know deep down, but you start questioning yourself. And then it starts leaking into other areas of our lives sometimes. Sometimes
Yeah.
it leaks into our relationships, it leaks into our family relationships.
Mhm.
And we just have this sense of, um, just a great sense of just disappointment. And sometimes it can really fuel feelings of depression also and anxiety, right?
Yes,
So the thought of, okay, well, if I leave here, where else can I go? Because maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, right? So why am I
yes,
getting these experiences? But what you said, Stefany, is so good because you were saying there were external issues that was their stuff, right? And sometimes we're in the middle of the fire and we're getting crispy, we're getting burnt, right? It's
hmm,
hard to see that. But when we get away from the experience, we can say, you know what? That was their stuff. That was not mine. That
right.
is not a reflection of who I am, right? But
Yeah,
because of who I am, because I am so strong, they were intimidated by me and they were doing all these things to try to bring me down, right?
yeah.
So when was that moment? Because you said mid-semester, you were like, I'm done, right? What was that moment, like that aha moment, like, I got to get out of here because I'm about to lose it? Like, what was that moment? What was happening? How'd you decide?
Oh my goodness. Um, there was one particular situation that happened, and I won't go into the whole story because that would be a whole nother live conversation.
Wow.
But pretty much there was a situation where a student in the school had been profiled in a way, for some like false pretenses, and like police were called on the wrong
Whoa.
set of students who happen to be Black
Oh my
boys. And
gosh.
in this time, like those mistakes
What
don't
the risk?
the risk of
Your
doing
life.
that.
Yes. Yes.
And I remember that situation happening and then like completely losing it in a leadership meeting to debrief, like, how did we get here? Like, how did this happen? And I knew
Mm-hmm.
I walked away from that meeting broken down and in tears. I said,
Mm-hmm.
I can't stay in this space anymore.
Yes.
And I also say, you know, I've been very blessed and fortunate to have some really solid people around me. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when I would go to my network of close people and sort of vent and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, kind of unpack what I was going through, um,
Yes.
you know, while my work environment was draining the life out of me, I had a community
Mm.
speaking life back into me. And
Woo.
I will say
Wow.
that when you have people, resources, activities, or
Mm-hmm.
things that are putting life back into you, it
Yes.
completely transforms your perception of your worth. And so, as I was receiving those messages, I said, this is not the space for me any longer.
Yes.
And it's time
Yes.
to go. It's time to pick up
Absolutely.
and get out of here because,
Exactly.
you know, I had to kind of reteach myself my worth and my empowerment, just the way that you were saying, like, this is on them. Like, I'm the gift
Yes.
space
Yes.
that I walk into.
Absolutely. And we need our supportive network around us to remind us of that, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes we get broken down, beat down, and we're in the fire, and it's hard for us to step out because sometimes we get so entrenched in it. First of all, we feel like we're stuck and we're not,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Second, we get in this pattern of trying to convince people of something, and it's like they're not even worth it, but we get in this pattern, right?
Right.
Or we get in this thing of, well, you're not gonna run me out of here, right? Like I'm
Right.
not. You're not, but we're the ones getting harmed, and so it's important for us to really pull on our social support networks because they help heal us. And as you said, they bring life back into us. And girl, as soon as you said that was a situation, it was taking life out of you. That's a red flag right there. Like you got
Red.
to go. Right. Anything sucking the life out of you, you got to go. Nothing is worth our physical and our mental health. And
Yeah.
I just read a study, actually, Stefany, it was talking about Black women, we're now dying at younger ages and
Hmm.
we're getting diseases at younger ages because of these external factors, right?
Yeah.
Such as job stress. And so for me, you know, when I was in a toxic work environment, I started looking at other Black women around me. And thank goodness I've had a good circle of friends too, sister friends. And they checked me and they were like, Kamani, stop. They did reality testing for me because gaslighting can test your reality. Like, am
Yes.
I saying something right? So your friends are the ones who say, girl, no, that's them. Leave that
Right.
alone, right? That's the one thing. The second thing is knowing when to pull back and knowing when your sanity or your well-being is at stake. And I know that as I looked around the Black women around me, Stefany, it was like it was a wake up call because I saw a lot of Black women, my age category or maybe a little older, dying, literally dying, cancer, heart disease, stroke. And I said at that moment, I was like, this is not worth it at all.
Yeah.
Okay. There's so much more to my life than this. And I think what happens is that sometimes people in these jobs, these positions, they become defined by them, right?
Yeah.
But you're able to see, I'm so much bigger than this, right? Like I got a lot going on. I'm leaving. So you talked about your healing journey in the sense of number one, you left. And I love what you said too, that you were brought up just as I was. You do not leave a job without something else lined up. You do
Right.
not do that. Right. And you stick it out no matter what, right?
Right.
And so what was that like to challenge that from your mother? Because I know my mother and I had some words about it, right? What
Mhm.
was it like for you to have that experience and how did that go?
Well, I know, I think my mom is on here, and so I will say it right now. She didn't know that until I had another job. So, so yes, mama didn't know until I had the job secured because
I love it.
yes, but all jokes aside, one thing that I want to just add on to that, because I think it ties into this next question that you asked, is that, you know, as Black women, we feel like we have to take it all. We have to
Yeah.
carry the world on our shoulders, and we've
Yeah.
been conditioned. And, you know, a lot of us come from upbringing where we have been put in positions to
Mm-hmm.
be the nurturers and be
Right.
the hard workers and be the
Right.
people who, you know, don't make excuses. We roll up our sleeves. We don't sit around and talk about how this isn't going to work. We find a way to make it
We
work,
make it happen.
and we make it
Yes.
happen. And
Yes.
I think we're coming into a period of time that I'm loving right now, where we're giving ourselves permission to rest, to recover,
Yes.
and to leave things
Yes.
that no longer serve us. And
Yes.
that hasn't been normalized. And I am so excited that we're now moving into a space where it is. And so for me, when I made the transition and I left that job,
Mm-hmm.
there were a couple of things in my mindset, in my heart, that transformed and changed, because I
Mm-hmm.
said that I would never want to return to that space again. And
Yes.
it was very much so this idea of knowing my worth in
Mm-hmm.
a way where I was approaching any future professional opportunities as if I was the gift in that space.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that next interview that I had, Kamani, where I was going to my next job, they might tell you that I interviewed them. I was like, what is this space offering to me? How will this space help and grow and expand me? And
Yes.
when I started approaching, you know, my professional life in that way, I
Mm-hmm.
started approaching every aspect of my life in that way, and it helped me build confidence. It helped me, you
Absolutely.
know, set healthy boundaries, and it helped me
Absolutely.
build and maintain healthy relationships. And so
Yes.
I now, even in this moment, if I'm entering any space, it's like I'm the gift here. My lived
Yes.
experiences are valid. They matter, and they're
Yes.
gold, baby. They are
Yes.
gold. Like, you can't pay me enough for what it is that I've gone through and what I've lived through. Like, you're getting
Yes.
me at a huge discount. And
Yes.
when you operate in that space as if you are the gift in these
Mm-hmm.
spaces, it completely transforms your heart. It transforms
Absolutely.
your mind, and it transforms the
Absolutely.
habits that you build to take care of
Mm-hmm.
yourself and heal. So it hasn't been an easy journey, but
Yeah.
this has been a pivotal moment for me, having this mindset about who I am and what I have to offer and the value that I bring
Mm-hmm.
into spaces. That was sort of the beginning step of my healing journey, and I
Yeah.
haven't looked back. Like,
Yes.
I
Yes. So I see a lot of hearts going on. I think it's your mom, my baby. Is that
yeah,
your mom, Sandra?
yeah, that's her.
She's proud of you. Yeah, she's proud of you. And then I saw also comments talking about leave it. You know, like when stuff is like harming us, we got to leave. And like you said, Stefany, recognize that we are the gift, right? And that when we go into environments and they don't affirm us, that's not where we belong. If they don't support us, if they don't recognize our worth, we don't belong there. And so yes, interview them in terms of what is this environment really like and how are you supporting my growth? And I'm going to shift also in terms of, you say gift. There's a phrase I use with some of my friends, and I say, "You're the shit." Right? It's like
That's right.
knowing you're the shit, like Jill Scott said. Right? You are the shit, and knowing that, right?
Right.
And be confident in that, and be confident enough to say, you know what? If this environment is not working for me, I release it. So I was thinking about Beautiful Chorus. They have a song called "I Release." So I release whatever no longer serves me. Our release no longer works for me, right? This does not work for me. I'm out. And so you also talked about rest. And as Black women, we have always, since we've been in this country, have always been the ones to get it done, right? And so now we're getting to a point where we're recognizing we deserve more. We deserve better, right? Than just keep working and doing stuff for other people. We deserve to live our lives. And so you talked about rest. I was thinking about the NAP ministry, right? How she talked about rest and how that's so important. And it's actually a form of liberation because our ancestors, they weren't allowed to rest. But now we are in the position to say, no, we are resting. We are taking a moment and we're standing up for what we affirm, right? And I see the world definitely counts on us. We deserve, absolutely, we deserve so much, right? And part of what we deserve and part of what's so important is that we have to stand up and we have to say no, right? And so that's part of why we're here today having this conversation is in terms of raising the awareness about Black women in work experiences so that we know, number one, a lot of us are going through this or have gone through it, right? Number two, this is not okay. So we're going to all stand up and say, no, no more, right?
Right.
And we have options, Stefany. We have options. So we don't have to feel like we're stuck in these horrible situations that are killing us, that are literally killing us. And so in terms of your healing journey, you talked about, it wasn't an easy journey, but you're in a whole different space than where you are now, right? So can you share with the audience, where are you now? What are you doing now? I know you're in a doctoral program. Share with us about that. We would love to hear about that too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, since I left, that toxic work experience, I will say that life has soared for me, and I've been so just blessed and humbled to grow. And I think those opportunities came to me because my heart and mind were ready for them. I was ready to receive them. I had built my confidence back up. I had invested in my healing. I had invested in my self-care. And so opportunities to walk more in my purpose began to just line up for me to where I felt like, oh my gosh, this is like, too much. So, since then I've had the opportunity to work in state level policy, which was a rewarding experience, and thinking about, diversifying our workforce and finding ways to retain our current Black and Brown educators. And my story and what I went through really set the foundation and the drive for me to, really capitalize on that work. And so it led me into now a national space beyond Massachusetts, where I'm a consulting director and helping folks on a national level do this work in their communities. And so my doctoral program right now and my research is all about Black women leaders, specifically principals in urban schools. So I'm investigating on how we are improving the experiences of Black women principals in our urban communities and empowering them and setting up spaces for them that are unique to their intersectional experiences that they go through in leadership. And so obviously I'm very excited and empowered to do this work because I know what it was like to be a Black leader in a school and be alone. And so now there's a need, right? There's a need to create a sisterhood, to create a network of support specifically designed for Black women. And so all of my doctoral research is centered around this hope. And, I put it out in the universe, or I say out in the universe often that, once I transition from this doctoral research program, I feel like my steps are aligning me to serve Black women and empower them, for the rest of my life. It just fills me up to be in spaces and to support and see Black women and look at them and just acknowledge and bask in their gifts and their brilliance. Like I literally fangirl over every Black woman that I see. And it's because, any compliment that I get, I'm like, sister, I am your reflection. Like when I look at you, I see brilliance. I see, and that's all my doctoral research is meant to illuminate love, sisterhood, connection, and to really create spaces where Black women feel empowered to be themselves, whatever it is that looks like. you know,
Yes.
to be yourself and to feel empowered to expand in ways that lead you in the pathways to do the things that you were meant to do. We're so distracted
Yes.
by white supremacy and all these things that we don't even get a chance to really step into our true gifts and what we were, set out here to do, right?
Yes.
We become scared, imposter syndrome sets in,
Yes.
shrink, and
Yeah.
no,
Oh, shrinking. That's woo.
this is the season for expansion. Okay, all of every
Yes.
Black woman that is on this call right now, after you hang up, I want you to go find a mirror and I want you to look at your beautiful face and I want you to say, I will no longer shrink for anybody. This is my year
Ooh,
of expansion, and
yes.
so on here and so forth. I just get goosebumps just talking about.
Stefany, girl, the chat is lighting up. It's like I can't even keep up. They're like, your work, your brilliance, no joke, expansion. We need you. We need these conversations. We need to be affirmed, right? And shrink where? Exactly, shrink where? Anytime you feel like somebody is trying to make you shrink or dim your light, bye. No, this is not the place for you. This is not the place for you. Bye, Felicia. Go, right? And as you were talking, Stefany, I was getting excited for you because I'm like, oh, I could just see it. Like, I just see you like writing a book or writing books and doing workshops and just so empowering in terms of your testimony. And that's why I'm so happy that you are here today because I know the power of testimony and I know how powerful it is for you to share your testimony because it's healing for you. It's healing for me because I've been in toxic work experiences and hopefully it's healing for other people. So I just want to continue to support you in the work that you're doing. I'm so excited about it. And in whatever ways I can support you, I'm all in. Okay. I'm all in. And I'm just so happy to be here with my Spelman sister, having this powerful conversation. Your mom is showering you with love. I love it. And just also, just to remember, Spelman women, that we are undaunted by the fight because the fight is there and it's going to continue to be there. But we are making a choice to change the world. We are, right? Because the world is not going to affirm us, going to sit back and say, oh, let's uplift Black women. No, we have to use our voices and say, no, this is what we are demanding and this is what we're doing. And guess what? We're going to lift each other up. Right. So, you're helping other Black women principals, and we have to recognize the power of sisterhood and really affirm sisterhood. All these little false divisions and competition and jealousy, and it's harming us. We will never get anywhere as a people. So we have to come together and really know our individual worth and our collective worth. So I see collective healing. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Stefany, is there anything else you would like to share before we wind down for today?
No, I think that, the last thing that was on my mind you kind of got at is about this importance of unapologetic sisterhood, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
we have internalized racism and we internalized white supremacy at times. And that has led us to, look at our sister. And I also say, look at ourselves, because again, when I see you, Kamani, I see me, and judge them, right?
Yes.
Judge
them. And put them down. And put them down.
And put them down and break them down. And so that really is at the heart of us getting to this space of collective healing, is us continuing to do our own work within. Because the work that we do within, it always shows up on the outside in how we talk, how we treat people. And so this healing is, collective, but it's so much about the internal work that we're allowing ourselves to do and allowing ourselves to take in, because that what happens internally, manifests itself on the outside. And I living testimony of that. When I, was insecure in myself, when I let imposter syndrome take place, when I looked at my sister and judged her, like, who does she think she is? Those insecurities, they showed up in my life, right? I was in a toxic work environment and just a toxic me environment, right? Like, I was toxic. And sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves. And we have
honest self-reflection.
I you know, maybe I'm manifesting toxicity as well. And that may be our
Mm,
feet planted in quicksand in our environments. And so when you continue to lean into your internal healing, you begin to
mm-hmm.
see these different things
Yes.
in yourself that need healing. And then
Yes.
those things kind of line themselves up around you. And so I think that's very true for sisterhood as well. We have to love
Mm-hmm.
each other in whatever ways we do. Like if you go to my Instagram, you see luxury, travel, glam, and that's okay, you know?
Yes.
And we just need to normalize that there is not a particular way that a Black woman needs to look or present herself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that will also help us in our workspaces. And like what our
Mm-hmm.
workspaces need to know is like,
Mm-hmm.
we need to create an authentic space where Black women can show up as they are for who they are
Yes.
in whatever ways that make sense for them. And we don't need to
Absolutely.
have an archetype of what that looks like.
Absolutely, absolutely. And being in environments where we're not silenced, right? And we're put in positions where we can't be our best selves, right?
Yeah.
So that, but also when you talk about sisterhood and self-reflection, that we have to be open to that. And we have to recognize that when we do have that toxicity within us, recognize that that is a reflection of social programming, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how we see ourselves, how we see other Black women, that is social programming, that is internalized racism and sexism. And we have to reject it and say, no, that is not the truth. That's a lie, right? That's a
Lie,
lie.
girl. It's
And
a
so we
lie.
have to have truth about that. And we have to recognize that because, you know, part of the social program, and I saw somebody on the chat wrote about this, part of the social programming is Black women don't support one another. Black women do. And you and I are here to say, no, that is not true, right? We know it's not true, right?
True.
We know about sisterhood. So many of us know about sisterhood. We have to reject that narrative. It's not true. There are times when that does happen. But again, we need to have that internal self-reflection in terms of how we see ourselves and how we see each other.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yes, it's a lie. It's a lie. We've got to reject that lie. Reject that lie. Reject it. Reject it. So I want to say to you, Stefany, I so appreciate you. This has been so powerful, so powerful. I just felt like I was in church, like, girl, yeah,
I'm filled up. We're filling each other's cups, and I hope people are walking away here feeling full. I'm glad this is on a Monday, so you go into the week expanded,
yes,
lubricated, like
yes,
just shining, glowing as the beautiful women that you are, because this is
absolutely,
what Healing Spaces does for us. It gives us what we need to be able to go back
absolutely.
and be ourselves.
And do the fight, right? Because the fight is not going to stop.
Right.
So this kind of conversation, us sharing and supporting one another, this helps to build psychological armoring for us as we go out into the world and we continue to fight, right?
Yeah.
But I also want to just put a plug out for therapy too, right?
Yes,
So, you know, for our own internal healing, sometimes we might need the support of a licensed mental health professional to help us deal with that stuff, because it's a lot of stuff that we have to deal with as Black women. And for us to be sane and whole and all these things, it's okay to go to therapy. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we say, oh, well, I'm not crazy, or I'm not. No, 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 no. It's not if you're crazy. No, we all need therapy, honestly. Okay. Yeah. I have a therapist. You know what I mean? So therapists have therapists. It's a beautiful thing. So please reach out and get therapy if you need the support. Come through with that Spelman Blue. That's right. That's right. That's right. So I want to say to you, Stefany, I appreciate you. And I just encourage you and uplift you in all the work that you're doing. And I will continue to support you from afar. I would love to hear as things progress, how things go. And I also want to tell the audience, I appreciate you for tuning in. This video will be uploaded into my YouTube channel, Lifting As We Climb Consulting Wellness Services. And all the other videos I've done with Black women will also be uploaded there as well. So please feel free to share, subscribe, turn on the notifications bell, right? And I also have a job coaching program for Black women who are interested in leaving toxic jobs but that healing stuff needs to be dealt with. So if you're interested in that, please go to my website, liftingasweclimbconsulting.com. And this is open to anyone. You don't have to be in California because it's a coaching program. Okay. Thank you so much, Queens. Thank you for tuning in. And so next week, I'm going to have something a little different. We're going to have a panel and we're going to be talking about using our Spelman sisters phrase again, Dr. Monica Cox, stop playing diversity, right? So we're going to have a conversation about what is performative diversity. I'm sure many of us in our workplaces have been around where they're like, oh, we stand with Black people, but they treat the Black staff like crap. Right. Or we love Black people, but they treat the Black students and the families like they don't really matter, or they're policing them, right? Or judging them. So next week, we're going to have a panel talking about that issue. So I hope that you tune in, keep a lookout for that. And to everyone, and to my special guest, Stefany, my Spelman sister, I say good night and thank you and take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Stefany. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.